Hello, dear friend. Come sit with me for a moment, perhaps, on a soft cushion beneath the shade of your favorite tree. The birds are gently singing, the breeze carries the scent of blooming herbs, and the soil still holds the warmth of the morning sun. A cup of tea rests in your hand, and before us is a small garden waiting to be made magical. Not by money, not by youth, but by the hands of someone who knows how to love a second chance. You see, beauty doesn't always arrive in shiny packaging. Sometimes it's tucked beneath a cracked lampshade, hidden in the curve of an old chair leg, or waiting inside a dusty box at the Goodwill bins. When you've lived a few seasons, as you and I have, you begin to see not what something is, but what it could be. And that, my dear, is the real gift. This isn't just about decoration. It's about transformation. The kind that happens not only in the garden, but in us. Taking what others overlook and turning it into something worthy of wonder. Sculptures that glimmer with glass or hum softly in the breeze. Tiny ladybugs tucked between mossy stones. Hummingbirds paused mid-flight, made not of feathers but of twisted wire and old spoons. Today I'll walk you through 20 beautiful ways to turn Goodwill junk into luxury garden art. Not only because it saves money, but because it tells a story. Your story. A story of care, creativity, and quiet joy. And so, as we begin, let me remind you, you don't need wealth. You don't need perfect health. You just need a bit of time and the willingness to see beauty where others don't. Let's begin this garden of forgotten treasures together. Do you remember those old bedside lamps, the kind with a wide flared shade and a heavy ceramic base? Perhaps one sat on your grandmother's nightstand or lit the pages of your favorite book. Today, that lamp, or at least its parts, may be ready for something new, a magical mushroom village for your garden. Start with the lampshade. If it's dome-shaped or gently rounded, you're already halfway there. That curve becomes the cap of your mushroom. Now head to the wood section at Goodwill or your local thrift store. Look for table legs, candle holders, or wooden dowels. These will serve as the stems. If they're uneven or nicked, all the better. Imperfection adds charm. Once home, clean each piece thoroughly with warm, soapy water. Let them dry in the sun. Then grab your paints. Choose rich, whimsical tones, cherry red sunshine, yellow soft lilac. Use a sponge or brush to dab on polka dots or delicate lines. You can paint the stems white or a natural wood tone to mimic the elegant slenderness of real fungi. Next, attach the caps to the stems using a strong construction adhesive or small screws if working with heavier materials. Be sure each mushroom is secure and balanced before moving on. You might even want to create clusters, tall ones in the back, tiny ones nestled in front. Now for the magic, add a few ladybug figurines here and there. You can find them pre-made or paint small pebbles to look like them black dots on a red surface. For the hummingbirds, a piece of bent wire and a bead can be shaped into the suggestion of wings mid-flight. Place them near the mushrooms or resting on top as if they've just discovered a secret woodland hideaway. This tiny village can be placed under a tree at the edge of a flower bed or tucked along a stepping path. You don't have to bend far. Elevate the arrangement with bricks or stones to keep it visible and accessible. Add a bit of moss or fairy lights if you'd like. The details are entirely up to your imagination. And when you see it there, peeking through the leaves like something out of a storybook, it may make you smile in the quietest way. Not just because it's beautiful, but because you made it. From things others had forgotten. Still useful, just like us. Have you ever looked at an old glass ornament or a clear vase and thought, this could glow if I just let it? That shimmer, that sparkle is where today's garden magic begins. And what better way to capture light and imagination than with floating glass orbs? These orbs can be found in surprising places. At Goodwill, look for light fixture globes, decorative glass bowls, or even unusual jars. The key is transparency and shape. The more varied in size, the more enchanting your final sculpture will become. Once home, give each glass piece a gentle bath. Then let's add something unexpected inside, little resin creatures. Don't worry if you're new to crafting. You can purchase pre-made transparent ladybugs or hummingbirds made from lightweight resin or acrylic. Or if you're feeling adventurous, try casting your own using a simple silicone mold and clear resin mixed with a touch of color. Drop the ladybugs into the orb so they seem to hover mid-air. Use fishing wire or thin floral wire to suspend a hummingbird near the opening as if it's darting through the globe. A few drops of clear glue on the inside can help hold delicate wings in place. To hang them, attach strong twine or wire to each globe's rim and suspend them from a tree branch pergola or metal garden hook. Try varying the heights, some low and close to eye level, others high enough to catch the morning sun. When sunlight filters through, you'll notice something truly breathtaking. The resin creatures inside will seem to glow. The ladybugs become lucky little jewels, and the hummingbirds, those tiny symbols of energy and sweetness, come alive in the light. Not only does this sculpture sparkle and dance with every breeze, but it also serves as a beacon for real-life pollinators. You might even spot a curious butterfly fluttering nearby, or a bird pausing to inspect your floating gallery. For seniors or those with limited mobility, this project is especially friendly. No digging, no lifting, just simple assembly at a comfortable table and easy hanging with help if needed. You can even create one beautiful orb at a time and add to your collection each season. In the end, it's more than decoration. It's a celebration of wonder, a reminder that even the most delicate things like light, like wings, like moments are worth noticing. Because beauty doesn't need to shout. Sometimes it just needs to float gently in the breeze. Picture this: a garden corner filled with tall, slender wooden towers like ancient guardians quietly watching over your plants. Not store-bought statues, but totems built by your own hands, using nothing more than old fence posts, table legs, or chunks of wood rescued from Goodwill bins. Each piece stacked, secured, and brought to life with tiny visitors, ladybugs tucked in crevices and hummingbirds balanced as if mid-song. Start by collecting wooden items with character-weathered chair legs, chipped broom handles, or discarded banister spindles. Look for wood that's dry but sturdy. A little wear and tear is perfect. If it has knots, cracks, or paint peeling off, even better. That's soul. To assemble your totem, begin with a wide base for stability. Use a large stump cement paver or a heavy wooden block. From there, stack and glue your wooden pieces vertically using strong outdoor adhesive, or secure them with screws if you're able. Vary the shapes thick and thin, smooth and rough to create visual rhythm. You can build one tall piece or a family of 3 varying heights like a small forest rising from your flower bed. Now bring it to life. In those tiny crevices and carved details nestle painted ladybugs. You can make them from small wooden beads, painted pebbles, or even flat buttons. Place them where the eye might wander, as if they've chosen these towers as shelter from the wind. For hummingbirds, use a bit of creativity. Bend thin wire into wing shapes, add a colorful bead or bit of recycled plastic for a body, and perch it gently near the top. You can glue it directly into a notch or anchor it with a tiny nail. If you prefer a natural finish, simply coat your totem in a clear, weatherproof sealant to protect the wood. Or if color calls to you, brush on earthy tones, moss green, sunset orange, a touch of sky blue, and let your personality show through. The best part. These sculptures are meant to evolve. Over time, moss may gather at the base, vines may curl around the edges, a real ladybug might settle in. That's the beauty of it, it grows with you. This kind of project doesn't require bending, digging, or physical strain. Most of it can be assembled on a tabletop and placed with care. And the meaning runs deep, using discarded wood to build something tall, strong, and quietly powerful. Like the aging tree that still provides shade. Like you. Have you ever had an old terracotta pot with a chipped rim or a faded finish? Maybe it sat on your porch for years holding herbs or geraniums. Instead of tossing it, what if I told you it could be part of a stunning vertical sculpture? A tower of pots that seems to dance and bloom, no water required. To begin, gather a variety of terracotta pots from Goodwill or your shed. Look for a mix of sizes, some small enough to perch in your palm, others wide and sturdy. A few imperfections are welcome. They give the tower a story. If some pots are broken or cracked, save the intact sections. Even a half pot can become an elegant tier. Lay your materials out on a table. Start building from the ground up. Place a rebar rod, wooden dowel, or metal stake into the soil where you want your sculpture. Slide the largest pot down first, threading it over the rod. Then add the next pot at a gentle angle, letting it rest on the edge of the one beneath it. Continue stacking alternating angles and sizes. This creates a delightful spiral that feels full of motion. Once your pots are in place, it's time for the details. Nestle tiny faux flowers inside each tier, silk blooms from a thrifted bouquet, felt blossoms you make by hand, or colorful fabric scraps shaped into petals. Secure them with hot glue or tuck them into the soil if you want to swap them out with the seasons. Now add your garden friends. Paint ladybugs directly onto the pots, one here on the rim, another climbing a faux leaf. Or glue on tiny 3D ladybugs made from buttons or pebbles. Hummingbirds can be fashioned from bits of wire and fabric or lightweight clay. Position them as if they're sipping from one of the faux flowers, hovering in joyful movement. This sculpture doesn't need to be tall. Even 3 stacked pots can create something magical. Place it near a walkway, at the edge of a flower bed, or on a patio table. It draws the eye upward and makes the most of vertical space, perfect for small gardens, or those who want impact without the effort of digging. Best of all, it's a symbol of transformation, of growth. Each pot, once ordinary, now part of something whimsical and bright. And like us, it may be chipped, a little off balance, but still blooming beautifully, one layer at a time. Because when things are stacked with care, whether pots or years, they don't fall. They stand taller. Some gardens whisper, others hum with energy. And this next idea, built from Metal Gear's cogs and mechanical pieces you might find buried in a Goodwill bin, hums with modern creativity and strength. These aren't just sculptures, they're totems of ingenuity. Quiet reminders that even the most industrial scraps can create something soulful. Start your hunt in the tool aisle or hardware section of the thrift store. Look for old gears, clock parts, sprockets, pipe flanges, even bicycle chains. Choose pieces that vary in size and texture. If the metal is rusted or aged, don't worry, that patina gives character. You can always polish parts with steel wool or leave the weathered look for extra charm. Once home, lay out your parts on a protected table. Begin arranging them not randomly, but with intention. Think of how the curved spokes and teeth might echo the patterns of nature. You can create a vertical tower, a flat wall sculpture, or a twisting shape depending on your materials and tools. To fasten the pieces, use a strong epoxy glue, or if you have access and assistance, basic welding tools. For seniors with limited strength, work with pre-cut wooden boards and glue the pieces in a pattern, creating a metal collage that can stand upright in the soil like a modern monolith. Now bring in your garden's guests. Paint small ladybugs onto metal bottle caps or washers. Use glossy red paint and a fine brush for black dots. These tiny works of art can be glued onto flat surfaces of your sculpture, nestled inside a cog, or perched on a bolt. For hummingbirds, cut their sleek forms from thin aluminum sheets or soft drink cans. Add a touch of color and gently bend the wings for dimension. Place them mid-air using garden wire, giving the illusion of flight among the gears. As light hits your sculpture, shadows shift. The metal reflects warmth in the sun and cools in the shade. It's an ever-changing piece, one that honors movement, purpose, and resilience. This project isn't just about beauty. It tells a story of reuse and rebirth. Metal once used to power machines now lives again, softly standing in your flower bed, echoing with history and transformation. And in a quiet way, it may reflect your own journey. Once built for doing, now grounded in being. Still strong, still intricate, still a marvel to behold. If you've ever walked past a jumble of plumbing parts at a thrift store or garage sale and thought, what on earth could I do with that? Well, my friend, this one's for you. Because those old pipes, elbows, and metal connectors, they're just waiting to become a whimsical garden sculpture. A celebration of imagination. A pipe dream come true. Begin by gathering your materials. Stray lengths of metal pipe joint pieces, curved elbows and connectors, anything that clicks or twists together. Don't worry if they're scratched or dented. In fact, it's better if they are. You're not going for perfection, you're going for character. Look in the tool bins at Goodwill or in the hardware clearance aisle. Once home, give everything a good scrub with soapy water and a wire brush. Then start playing. That's right, playing. Lay the pieces on the ground or table and see what comes to life. Maybe it's a tall abstract tower, a wide-legged figure, or even a crooked arch that resembles a gateway into another world. To assemble, use strong construction adhesive, or for added stability, screws and brackets if the materials allow. Don't aim for rigidity, let your sculpture have movement angles and unexpected turns. That's what makes it art. Now it's time for the heartwarming touches. Create ladybugs from painted washers or metal buttons. A dab of red and a few black dots are all it takes. Glue them onto joints or perch them playfully on curved pipe sections. For hummingbirds, bend garden wire into winged shapes, add beads or painted pieces for the body, and position them mid-hover as if they've just landed for a curious peek. You can keep the metal raw for an industrial feel or spray paint the entire sculpture in a bold color like deep teal copper or matte black. Add clear sealant to protect it from the elements, especially if you're placing it in a sunny spot. What's beautiful about this design is how it brings contrast into your garden. Among soft petals and leafy greens, this strong angular form stands like a thought unexpected and deeply intentional. And here's a lovely little truth for us to remember: pipes were meant to carry water, now they carry beauty. Just as our hands once used for labor now create peace. This is art made from what others walk past, a monument to movement, purpose, and joyful reinvention. Because even old plumbing parts deserve a second dream, and so do we. There's something comforting about broken things coming together to make something whole. Like the pieces of a life well lived, chipped, worn, each holding a story. That's the quiet power of mosaic. And with just a few broken plates, some Goodwill glassware, and a little love, you can create a garden sculpture that sparkles with meaning. Start your hunt in the ceramics aisle. Look for cracked dishes, colorful mugs, chipped tiles, and odd-shaped glass baubles. Don't worry if the patterns clash. In mosaic, contrast is what makes the final piece shine. Grab a few old picture frames or wooden panels too, they'll make the perfect base. Once home, put on your gloves, lay your pieces on a thick towel, and use a hammer to break them gently into smaller bits. Don't rush. This part is surprisingly therapeutic. Each snap feels like a letting go. When finished, lay out the pieces and begin to arrange them like puzzle fragments, letting color and texture guide you. If you're working on a panel, start by spreading tile adhesive or mortar onto the surface. Then gently press each shard into place, forming your design. You might create a swirling sunburst, a flower, or simply let the pattern emerge naturally. Be sure to leave just a bit of space between the pieces for grout. Here's where it gets playful. Nestle painted ladybugs into the design, a small red ceramic dot here, a black button there. Maybe add beads or polished stones as their eyes. For the hummingbirds, outline their delicate forms using thin tile slivers or colored glass. Position them mid-flight, sipping from a flower made of teacup petals or a daisy from broken saucers. Once everything is set, apply grout with a rubber scraper, filling in the gaps and wiping away the excess. Let it dry fully before sealing with a waterproof coat. Your mosaic is now weather-ready and can be propped in a flower bed, leaned against a fence, or mounted on a post like a piece of outdoor gallery art. This project is perfect for older hands because you can take it slow a little each day. You sit, you arrange, you create. No lifting, no heavy digging. Just peaceful rhythm. And perhaps the greatest gift is this: you've taken what was broken and made it beautiful. You've turned discarded bits into a masterpiece. Just like life. It's not about keeping everything whole. It's about making something meaningful from the pieces we've gathered along the way. Do you remember the sound of a teacup settling into its saucer? That soft clink, like the beginning of a quiet conversation. Those cups held morning comforts, late-night reflections, and maybe even a few garden dreams. Now they're ready for something new, to become the heart of a whimsical garden statue that tells its own little story. At your next trip to Goodwill, browse the shelf of forgotten teacups and mismatched saucers. Pick ones with floral patterns, gold rims, or tiny cracks that speak of another time. Look for small figurines, doll heads, or toy cars. The odd, broken, quirky bits people often overlook. These are your story pieces. Once home, wash everything gently, then lay it all out like a storyteller spreading their props. Your goal is to assemble a character or scene, a little garden vignette. Maybe a teacup becomes a skirt. A doll's head becomes the face. A broken toy forms a quirky pair of legs or a cart they're pushing. Don't worry about realism, this is about charm and imagination. Use a strong adhesive like epoxy to piece everything together, working slowly and letting each part set fully. Mount your statue onto a stone wood slice or inverted pot for stability. As you build, let your heart guide the scene. Maybe it's a tiny figure reading under a teacup umbrella. Maybe it's a teacup head wearing a crown of flowers. There are no rules here, just delight. Then come the details. Paint tiny ladybugs on the saucers or climbing up a toy's foot. Add a hummingbird made of wire and beads, hovering beside the statue like a garden companion. Tuck moss or dried flowers into empty cup bowls. Maybe even include a secret note rolled up inside a little message from you to the future. Place your teacup statue somewhere unexpected beside a stepping stone near the edge of a raised bed or nestled under a bush. Somewhere it'll surprise and enchant. This is a project you can do entirely at a table with soft music playing and the afternoon light spilling across your workspace. It doesn't require strength, only patience. And it's not about perfection. It's about creating something that feels like it has a soul. Because in a way it does. It carries memory, it holds whimsy, it tells a story only your hands could write. And when someone spots it among your marigolds or tucked beside a lavender bush, they might pause, smile, and feel for a moment like a child again. There's a quiet elegance in clean lines and bold silhouettes. No flowers, no frills, just form balance and shadow playing across a sculpture like time passing over a sundial. That's the feeling behind this next idea: stacked modern shapes made from thrifted finds transformed into striking contemporary garden art. Begin with a trip to Goodwill's home goods aisle. Look for old wooden boxes, clock faces, square tins, plastic containers, or any geometric objects that feel solid and stackable. You're not looking for beauty just yet, you're looking for shape. A cylinder, a square, a rectangle, even a cone. If the surfaces are scratched or dented, it won't matter. Those imperfections will soon be dressed in elegance. Once you've gathered a few pieces, clean them well and let them dry completely. Then begin to play with arrangement. Stack the pieces like blocks, experimenting with verticality. Let a wide base support slimmer tiers. You might offset one level slightly or tilt an object just enough to make the eye linger. You're not building a tower, you're composing a rhythm. Use epoxy or brackets to secure each piece in place. If you'd like a more architectural look, spray paint the whole sculpture in a matte monochrome color: charcoal black slate, gray creamy ivory, or a bold mustard yellow. This creates cohesion, turning mismatched thrifted items into a unified high-end form. Now it's time for the accents, the tiny tender guests of your modern masterpiece. Create minimalist ladybugs using small round wood pieces or buttons painted simply with dots. Tuck them onto ledges or rest them against corners like a whispered surprise. For hummingbirds, craft sleek silhouettes from thin metal or cardstock. Nothing ornate, just a few elegant lines. Glue or suspend them in mid-air using floral wire, so they appear to hover beside the sculpture like a breath caught in motion. This sculpture is especially friendly for small patios or modern garden spaces where simplicity reigns. You can make it table height or tall and statuesque. Either way, it offers vertical beauty without demanding physical labor: no digging, no bending, no heavy lifting. And just like that, you've created a piece of contemporary art from forgotten household shapes. Something that might have been tossed away now stands proudly in the sun. A quiet celebration of balance, of elevation, of beauty found in clean edges and second chances. It's proof that art doesn't have to shout. Sometimes it simply stands tall, still, and sure in your favorite corner of the garden. Imagine standing in your garden and seeing something that feels like it belongs on a grand old estate, tall, symmetrical, gleaming just slightly in the sun. That's the magic of Art Deco. And with just a few thrifted fan blades, metal grates, or even old radiator covers, you can bring this elegant vintage style right into your outdoor space. Head to the back of your local Goodwill or secondhand shop, where old appliances and metal odds and ends are kept. Look for anything with a fan shape: literal fan blades, fireplace screens, grill covers, or decorative wire pieces with repeating patterns. The key is symmetry and structure. Even a warped piece can be beautiful once repurposed. Once you've collected your materials, clean them gently to remove dust and rust. You can lightly sand if needed. Then decide how you'll arrange them. Will you stack the fan shapes like feathers rising from a base, or attach them side by side like a sunburst? Use a piece of wood cement paver or metal pipe as a sturdy anchor. Fasten everything together with screws, metal brackets, or heavy-duty adhesive, depending on your materials. Paint is optional, but a little metallic spray paint, gold, bronze, or deep black can elevate the look to something worthy of a Gatsby garden party. Try dry brushing over the edges for an antique finish that lets the underlying textures peek through. Then come the accents. Use old brooches, earrings, or bits of metal to create stylized ladybugs, small jewel-like and subtly placed along the fan lines. For hummingbirds, shape their angular forms from thin polished metal or chrome scraps. Position them with intention, one diving toward a corner, another seeming to hover mid-air. Place your sculpture at the end of a path or near a wall where it can stand tall and dignified. These towers work beautifully in both small gardens and grand landscapes, adding vertical interest and a sophisticated focal point with minimal physical effort. Most of the work happens at table height, a joy for older hands who still long to create, but prefer not to kneel or bend. And here's what makes this project so meaningful. It's not just about glamour. It's about honoring a time when design was bold and graceful, just like you. A time when elegance lived in details. And now that spirit lives again through your hands. Because even in a garden of soft petals and wandering vines, there's room for strength, style, and symmetry. And just like that, an old fan becomes a sculpture. And your garden becomes a place of timeless charm. Sometimes the most powerful art is the quietest. A few stones balanced with care can speak more deeply than any grand fountain or golden statue. They remind us of patience, presence, and the gentle strength it takes to stand still. That's the heart of this next project, a meditative stone stack sculpture built with your own hands at your own pace. Start by collecting stones. You can find them naturally from walks along a creek bed, a nearby trail, or even your own backyard. Or visit Goodwill and look for decorative stones, smooth pebbles, or even ceramic spheres and flat marbles meant for vases. Choose a variety of shapes, round, oval, wide, or narrow. The goal is balance, not perfection. At home, clean the stones with warm water and a brush, especially if they've gathered dust or soil. Lay them out on a table and begin experimenting. Which ones rest easily on each other? Which pair makes you smile? This is a puzzle without rules, just a feeling of what fits. If you want the sculpture to be permanent, use a clear construction adhesive between each layer. Or if you prefer to rearrange over time, simply dry stack your stones in a quiet garden corner where wind and rain can't easily reach them. To elevate the structure, you can place the base stone on a terracotta saucer or a slab of reclaimed wood. Now let's invite in a few little friends. Paint tiny ladybugs on the flattest stones, perhaps one near the base, another peeking out from under a ledge. Use a fine brush for those signature dots. For hummingbirds, try crafting their forms from twisted natural fibers wire, or even dried leaves shaped and glued into simple silhouettes. Perch them on the top stone as if they've just arrived to rest. This sculpture doesn't demand bending, lifting, or any heavy equipment. Everything can be built slowly, seated at a table or low bench. You can even make multiple smaller stacks and group them together for a stone village feel. Add a few sprigs of lavender or creeping thyme at the base to soften the edges. What this piece brings to your garden isn't just visual, it's emotional. A sense of pause, a breath. It reflects your calm, your balance, your quiet strength. Because like these stones, you've been weathered and worn, and still you hold. Do you remember hanging a wind chime or dream catcher by the window and watching it dance in the light? The way the breeze made it sing gently like a lullaby for the garden. That's the essence of this project. Dream catchers and swirling sculptures made from driftwood shells and treasures gathered from Goodwill bins, all woven into peaceful, wind-kissed beauty. Start by seeking out old embroidery hoops, wire wreath frames, or even lampshade rings. At Goodwill, head to the craft aisle or rummage through kitchen and home goods for circular bases. Then look for small beachy pieces, seashells, glass beads, old jewelry, and bits of driftwood or thin twigs. Even costume earrings and broken necklaces can become part of the magic. To begin your dreamcatcher, wrap natural twine string or yarn, perhaps rescued from old spools or unraveled sweaters around the hoop, to form a loose, irregular web. Let it feel natural, not perfect. You can weave in a few beads or buttons as you go. Then tie driftwood pieces to the bottom so they hang like fringe, long and soft, like seaweed in slow water. Now for the details. Add small painted ladybugs onto smooth pebbles or wooden beads and nestle them within the weave. Their soft round shapes contrast with the angular web like tiny wishes caught in the pattern. For the hummingbirds, use feathers wire or scraps of sheer fabric to shape wings and slender bodies. Suspend them with invisible thread so they seem to float, always moving, always free. The swirling shell sculptures are just as gentle. Use a flat stone or wooden panel as a base and glue shells, beads, and polished glass into a spiral. Follow the flow of nature round and slow with a ladybug here, a small bird there, each one placed where your eye lingers. You don't need perfection, only feeling. These sculptures are ideal for placing where you rest by a garden bench, on a patio table, or beside a raised bed. They're light, manageable, and can be made completely while seated, which makes them perfect for quiet afternoons or slow recovery days. But more than that, they carry meaning. The dream catcher gathers peace. The spiral reminds us of life's gentle cycles. And the hummingbirds and ladybugs always present remind us that joy and luck can be found even in the smallest of things. You've taken shells once, tossed aside string nearly forgotten, and turned them into art that moves with the wind. Because your hands still weave beauty, and your spirit, like the wind, still stirs things into song. Sometimes the garden needs a little laughter, a gentle nudge of whimsy that reminds us not to take life too seriously. Enter the terracotta pot people. These cheerful characters, built from stacked clay pots and adorned with bits of fabric and found objects, will bring smiles to your space and charm to every corner. Begin your creation by gathering terracotta pots in a range of sizes. Goodwill often has a shelf of mismatched pots, some chipped, some small enough to hold a spoonful of soil. Don't worry about matching sets. In fact, the more variety, the more personality your pot person will have. You'll also want to find a pair of old garden gloves, a fabric scarf, and maybe even a wide-brimmed straw hat or baby-sized baseball cap. To build the body, start with a sturdy base, a larger pot turned upside down, secured to the ground, or a flat paver. Stack smaller pots on top using construction adhesive or a central rod for stability. Tilt a few slightly if you want a playful leaning effect. The top pot will serve as the head. You can paint a simple face or leave it blank for a more sculptural look. Now bring your pot person to life. Use garden gloves stuffed with soft moss or cloth as hands hanging gently from the sides using wire or string. You can add arms by stringing together small pots with twine, then draping them down from just beneath the head. If you found a scarf or scrap of vintage fabric at the thrift store, wrap it like a shawl or kerchief. A little flower tucked into the hat, pure joy. Of course, no golden life sculpture would be complete without our two symbolic friends. Paint ladybugs climbing the lower pots. A simple red circle with black dots is all it takes. Use a fine brush to make them smile. For hummingbirds, shape their tiny forms from foam felt or even spoon handles, bending them just enough to look like they're fluttering near the pot person's shoulder. These sculptures are accessible to make everything can be done from a table or standing position, and they're light enough to move with help. Place your finished pot friend near your front step, at the base of a trellis, or even in a raised bed so they peek over the blooms like a garden guardian. And here's what makes them truly special. They look like us. A little wobbly, a little worn, each piece gathered over time, yet still standing, still smiling, still adding beauty to the world. Because growing older doesn't mean growing dull, it means we finally get to play again. Some of the most charming treasures in a garden don't bloom, they hold. They cradle, they display. And this next idea turns vintage containers into a parade of personality, color, and joy. A retro planter display that transforms old tins, teapots, and ceramic vases into show-stopping pieces of garden art. At Goodwill, head straight to the shelves filled with kitchenware and home decor. Look for anything that can hold soil, old cookie tins, enamelware pots, ceramic pitchers, even quirky mugs or sugar bowls. The key is to mix shapes, colors, and textures. Don't worry if one has a dent or a chip. That just means it's lived a little like you and me. Back at home, clean each planter thoroughly and check for drainage. If there's no hole in the bottom, you can either drill one or add a layer of gravel inside before planting. For a longer-lasting display, you can also use faux plants, dried arrangements, or moss, which are easier to maintain and just as lovely. Arrange your planters along a bench atop a low stone wall or on a sturdy shelf. Stagger their heights by using bricks or overturned pots underneath some of them. Let the colors play together: florals, pastels, bold 70s patterns, all mingling like old friends at a garden party. Now let's add the quiet magic. Paint tiny ladybugs onto the surfaces, one crawling up the side of a yellow tin, another peeking out from behind a handle. Use waterproof craft paint and seal with clear outdoor varnish. Then craft small hummingbirds from old brooches, bits of costume jewelry, or painted cardboard. Perch them beside a blossom or affix them to a wire so they hover in the air above the planter wings outstretched in mid-flutter. This project requires no digging, lifting, or heavy tools. Just gentle hands, a bit of time, and a soft imagination. It's the perfect activity for a quiet afternoon on the porch with a cup of something warm. But more than that, it brings nostalgia. Each planter holds a memory, a style, a story, a shape from another era now renewed with life. You've taken what once served a table and invited it to serve again in a different way. Because usefulness doesn't end when the tea is gone or the cookies are eaten. Just like your heart still gives even when it's been poured out. And in that line of little planters, cheerful, chipped, and blooming, you'll see something beautiful. Not just flowers, but the return of joy. Picture an empty picture frame, the kind with delicate carved edges, maybe gilded, maybe chipped, leaning gently against a garden wall. Not forgotten, but reimagined. A window into a miniature world where time slows down. That's the magic of antique frame vignettes, turning discarded frames from Goodwill into moments of wonder nestled among your blooms. Your treasure hunt starts in the art section of any thrift store. Look for frames with personality, big or small, wooden or metal, oval or square. Don't worry if the glass is missing or cracked. In fact, it's better without it. What you want is the outline, the suggestion of a story yet to be told. Once you've chosen your frame, clean it gently. You can leave the aged paint or touch it up with soft pastels or a brushed antique gold. If the back is sturdy, you can mount your vignette inside. If not, use the frame like an open window hanging from a fence, propped on a shelf or leaned against a flower pot. Now the real fun begins. Inside this frame, begin building a scene using small found objects. An old teacup, a tiny ceramic bird, dried flowers, or pages from a weathered book can become part of your garden's memory box. These little pieces, broken jewelry, clock parts, vintage buttons, all found in the bins at Goodwill, become symbols of something once loved, now honored. Paint tiny ladybugs on small wooden beads or vintage brooches, tucking them quietly into corners. Craft delicate hummingbirds from wire and silk or glimmering foil, then perch them at the edge of the frame, like they're just discovering the scene within. Let their wings extend beyond the boundary, reminding us that beauty doesn't stay confined. These vignettes don't require soil, water, or even sun. Just care. Just the patience to assemble something meaningful from things others passed by. And because you can make them entirely on a tabletop, they're perfect for gentle hands and limited movement. Place your frame where someone might stumble upon it, behind a bush, along a walkway, or beside a favorite bench. Let it surprise. Let it feel like a story, paused mid-sentence, because that's what these frames really hold. Not just pretty things, but memory and quiet grace. You've taken something meant to hang indoors and set it free. You've given it new light, new purpose, new breath. And perhaps in doing so, you've given yourself that too. There's a certain poetry in compost, the way yesterday's scraps become tomorrow's soil. It's quiet, unseen, and deeply magical. And with a touch of creativity, even the humble compost bin can become a sculpture not just of decay, but of renewal. That's the heart of this idea: sculptural creatures built onto or around your compost bin, turning practicality into playful art. Start by visiting the bins and buckets section of Goodwill. Look for large plastic tubs, trash cans, or even old storage bins, anything with a lid and a bit of structure. These will be your base. Don't worry if the color is faded or the shape is awkward. In fact, that oddness is what gives your creature its personality. Clean the bin thoroughly and choose a main color palette. You might paint it green and brown to mimic nature, or go bold with bright blues and sunny yellows. Use exterior paint or spray paint that bonds to plastic and let each coat dry fully. Now let's sculpt. Gather recycled pieces from around your home or from thrift store odds and ends, plastic bottle caps, old spoons, beads, buttons, garden hose scraps, fabric strips. Use them to build your creature's face, limbs, wings, or patterns. Bottle caps can become eyes. Spoons can be ears or antennae. Old gloves might make arms reaching out to hug the nearby plants. Then add the signature touches. Paint ladybugs on the side, panels, big ones, small ones, maybe even a family of 3 marching upward. Use bold red and black paint and seal with clear varnish. For the hummingbirds, try cutting their forms from recycled plastic bottles. A little heat applied carefully can help you shape the wings, and a bit of wire lets you suspend them mid-flight near the lid, or handle as if they're inspecting the bin's contents. This project can be done entirely, standing or seated, no digging, no lifting. And if you already use compost, it's a perfect way to honor the process. If not, this might be the invitation you needed to start, because it's not just a bin anymore. It's a celebration, a joyful reminder that everything we discard still holds value, still has life left to give. And perhaps like this bin, we too are still transforming, still becoming. Even in decay there is beauty. Even in the mess something new begins. Rain barrels often sit quietly in the corner of a garden collecting nature's gift one drop at a time. But what if that practical container could become something more? A canvas, a sculpture, a celebration of abundance. That's what this idea is all about. Turning a simple rain barrel into a piece of living art through decorative reliefs and recycled beauty. Begin by finding your barrel. Many garden centers sell them new. But for our purposes, check the bins at Goodwill or salvage yards for large plastic containers, old drums, or used barrels. Look for a smooth surface and a sturdy lid, something functional that's ready for transformation. Once you've chosen your base, give it a good clean with soap and water. Let it dry completely, then plan your design. A relief means building up sculptural elements from the surface, not just painting, but layering. Think of it like a collage in 3 dimensions. Gather recycled materials, bits of metal broken tiles, plastic lids, scraps of wood bottle caps, old toy parts, or even flat stones. Begin arranging them on the barrel in a flowing design, perhaps a vine that wraps around a swirling sunburst or a landscape of rolling hills and flowers. Use construction adhesive or waterproof epoxy to secure each piece, working slowly and letting sections dry between sessions. Now add the little symbols of life. Paint ladybugs onto bottle caps or ceramic beads and nestle them among the vines or near the spout. For hummingbirds, try crafting them from recycled aluminum cans, thin, light, and easy to shape into wings and beaks. Polish the metal or paint them with soft, iridescent colors. Mount them so they seem to dart from one flower to the next, just above the barrel's surface. To finish, give the entire design a coat of outdoor sealant protecting it from sun and rain. Not only will your barrel now catch water, it will catch eyes too. Place it in a spot where it's easy to access, but also visible, maybe near your vegetable patch, beside a walkway, or in a quiet corner with a bench. Every time you walk past, it will remind you of the cycles of nature, collection, conservation, renewal. And it's more than just decoration, it's intention. You've taken something plain, even overlooked, and made it radiant. Because even the most functional things can carry beauty. Even containers can become expressions of joy. Even you, dear friend, still hold the power to turn the ordinary into wonder. With just your hands and your heart. There's a kind of freedom in abstract art, in letting lines twist where they please and letting colors speak without needing to explain themselves. And in the garden, this freedom becomes magic. Today's idea invites you to explore that playful, expressive side with 2 joyful creations: wire whimsy webs and sculptural paint splashes. Let's begin with the webs. Visit the hardware or fencing section at your local thrift store or reuse center. Look for discarded rolls of wire-bent hangers or even thin metal rods. You'll want flexible material that you can shape by hand or with basic pliers. Then gather small washers, metal buttons, broken earring backs, and other circular odds and ends. They'll become your ladybugs and accents. To start your wire web, create a loose circular frame. You can use a metal hoop, an old lampshade ring, or shape one from heavy wire. Then weave your thinner wire across the frame in airy, unpredictable loops, like a spider's web dancing in the wind. The idea isn't precision. It's poetry. Each twist is a decision, each knot is a story. Attach your ladybugs by painting the washers red with tiny black dots, then tying or gluing them into the web. For hummingbirds, bend soft wire into winged shapes and attach beads or painted pieces for their bodies. Let them hover in the open spaces, delicate and full of movement. Now for the paint splashes. This version is a little messier and a lot of fun. Head to Goodwill's furniture aisle and look for flat panels, old cabinet doors, drawer fronts, or wooden plaques. Clean the surface, then choose a color palette that delights you. Using outdoor paints, begin to layer splashes, drips, brush strokes, and bold color patches across the surface. Think modern art. Think joy unleashed. While the paint is still drying, embed found objects, bottle caps, shards of tile, even pieces of broken jewelry. Once, dry paint ladybugs directly onto the surface and add hummingbirds using contrasting strokes, silhouette stencils, or even cut-out fabric shapes sealed with Mod Podge. These pieces can be mounted on fences, propped against tree trunks, or leaned beside garden benches. And best of all, they're light-safe and completely manageable at table height. No tools required beyond a brush, a bit of glue, and the willingness to follow your instincts. There is something deeply healing in making art that doesn't have to be useful, that doesn't need to match anything. That simply is, because you're allowed to make messes that become beautiful. You're allowed to feel wild and vibrant, even now. And in every loop of wire and splash of paint, your spirit speaks. Not neatly, not perfectly, but honestly. Sometimes the most powerful art blends so gently into the garden that it feels like it grew there. That's the gift of today's two projects, branch animal silhouettes and stone story circles, both created from nature, both whispering of life's deeper meanings. They're simple, meditative, and surprisingly moving. Let's begin with the silhouettes. Start by gathering fallen branches after a windstorm is often best. Look for long, smooth pieces that curve or split naturally, almost like bones of a creature already halfway there. You'll also want smaller twigs, bark, or driftwood pieces. At Goodwill, check the craft bins for thin wood scraps wire or even old picture frame parts that can help you shape and mount your sculpture. Choose an animal you love, perhaps a deer, a fox, a bird. Not a detailed drawing, just the outline. Think of it like a shadow. Lay out the branches on the ground or a large table and arrange them into your silhouette. Use twine, floral wire, or glue to bind the joints. You can mount the finished form onto a wire frame or stake it directly into the soil, letting it stand among tall grasses or lean softly against a fence. Now tuck in your tiny symbols. Paint a few smooth pebbles as ladybugs and nestle them into the lines of the silhouette, one nestled in the back of a deer, another on the wing of a bird. Shape hummingbirds from thin wood slices or layered paper and glue them near the nose or paw as if they've landed for a secret conversation. Next, create your story circles. Gather a variety of stones, flat ones, round ones, a few pebbles with natural patterns. You can find many of these in landscaping bins, garden paths, or thrifted decor packs. In a quiet garden corner, arrange them into small circles, maybe 2 feet wide, maybe the size of a dinner plate. Let each one represent something, a memory, a prayer, a person you love. Paint symbols onto some of the stones. A ladybug for good fortune, a swirl for growth, a heart, a leaf. Add one hummingbird stone to each circle, a signature of joy. You might even tuck a little handwritten message beneath a rock, a secret only the earth will hold. These projects are ideal for slower days. They require no heavy lifting, no bending if done atop a table or waist-high bed. You can build them piece by piece, letting your hands work while your thoughts gently wander. Because sometimes art doesn't need a frame. Sometimes it's shaped by wind and grounded by stone. And when someone walks through your garden and pauses beside a quiet silhouette or a stone circle nestled in the soil, they may not know the story behind it. But they'll feel something: calm, connection, presence. And isn't that what we're really creating? Not just decor, but meaning. There's something magical about light in the garden, not the blinding kind, but the soft, glowing kind that appears just as the day begins to dim. It invites quiet. It whispers beauty. And today's final idea celebrates that gentle glow with 2 simple yet enchanting projects: solar jar sculptures and dramatic uplight installations, both using recycled finds from Goodwill. Let's start with the solar jars. Head to the glassware section of your thrift store. Look for mason jars, decorative vases, or even wide glass cups with interesting textures or colors. The more variety, the better. Then pick up a few solar-powered garden lights, the kind with removable tops that hold the charging cell and light. At home, clean each jar well. Gently remove the solar light tops from their stakes and fit them snugly into the jar openings. If the top is loose, you can use floral tape or a rubber ring to secure it. When the sun sets, these jars will glow from within, soft, flickering lights scattered like fireflies throughout your garden. Now, for the secret touch. On the inside of the jar, suspend tiny painted ladybugs using clear thread or glue them gently to the inner wall. Their little red bodies will glow as the light shines through. Add transparent hummingbirds crafted from plastic packaging or bottle scraps, shaped with heat and care, then hung just off-center so they seem to float. These jars can sit on steps, hang from tree branches, or rest among your potted herbs. They're easy to carry, reposition, and enjoy, ideal for gentle evenings outside. Now for something a little more dramatic, uplight art. This time search Goodwill for old pipes, metal grates, broken lamp bases, or architectural fragments. You're looking for strong sculptural shapes, something with presence. Once home, arrange them vertically, fastening them to a stable base. Think of it like setting a statue, a bold, abstract form rising from the garden bed. Then place a solar or low-voltage spotlight at the base, aiming upward. When night falls, your sculpture will cast long, dancing shadows on the wall or nearby plants, transforming into a glowing centerpiece. To make it personal, add silhouette ladybugs cut from dark metal or thick craft foam glued along the edges where their shadows will stretch dramatically. Craft hummingbirds in profile, their long beaks and delicate wings catching just enough light to flicker in the dark. These projects are physically light and emotionally rich. They require no digging, no straining, just imagination and the willingness to see light where others see junk. Because at this age, we've learned something precious. Light doesn't always have to come from above. Sometimes it rises from below, from within, from the places we've repaired and repurposed. And as your garden glows softly through the night, know that you've created something more than art. You've made a place for reflection, for beauty, for quiet joy. And so, dear friend, we come to the end of our quiet walk through creativity, not with instructions or blueprints, but with heart and imagination. We've turned lamps into mushrooms, pipes into poetry, and forgotten frames into windows filled with light. But more than that, we've done something deeply meaningful. We've proven that beauty doesn't come from what's new. It comes from what's noticed. In every sculpture we've shaped, there's a whisper of something deeper, a story reclaimed, a memory honored, a second chance shining just as brightly, maybe more so than something store-bought. You didn't need expensive tools or perfect health. You didn't need youth or trend. All you needed was the willingness to see possibility. In a cracked teacup, a bent spoon, a pebble shaped like a heart. And that, dear one, is what makes you a true artist, a quiet gardener of wonder. These garden sculptures, from your teacup towers to your wire webs, they're more than decor. They're little monuments to who you are, resourceful, joyful, and alive with the kind of grace that can't be rushed. Each ladybug and hummingbird you tucked into your work carries meaning of good fortune, of quiet joy, of movement and resilience. And your garden, it's no longer just a patch of soil. It's a sanctuary, a gallery, a reflection of a soul still blooming. So, which idea brought you the most joy? Was it the dream catchers in the wind, the retro planter parade, or perhaps the compost bin creature that made you laugh? I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And if you'd like more ideas like these, gentle, soulful, and budget-friendly, be sure to subscribe and tap the bell so we can keep creating together. Until then, keep crafting, keep finding beauty in the bits. And know this, your hands still create wonder. Your mind still sees what others miss. And your heart, your golden, steady heart, makes this world more beautiful. Until next time, happy gardening, dear friend.